Okay, good. So I'm going to introduce Kelsey. Then Kelsey, I am going to give you co-host right now. So then that way you are able to share your screen. Okay. So Kelsey Stone is an undergraduate research assistant at the Utah Valley University. She is planning to graduate this May with a bachelor's in biology, and she currently is searching for graduate programs in entomology for the fall 2024. But until then, she is going to work full-time at the butterfly biosphere, which she'll be talking about today, where she's working with hundreds of species of insects and invertebrate. And although butterflies are the biggest draw to the guests, she personally prefers millipedes, centipedes, scorpion allies, and orthopterans. And Kelsey, I'm going to give it to you.
All right, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for the introduction. Yeah, so my name is Kelsey. Let me get my PowerPoint presentation pulled up here. I'm actually at an entomology conference in Seattle, so I'm a little scattered right now, but I've got it here. Okay. All right, is everyone able to see that?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So I am presenting on...
Actually, Kelsey, sorry. Yeah, there you go. Now you're in presenter mode. Okay, good.
Okay, cool. Beautiful. So I'm presenting about rearing butterflies in captivity and some of the barriers that prevent us from successfully raising them. My affiliations are with Utah Valley University, the Department of Biology, and I'm also an entomologist with Thanksgiving Point's butterfly biosphere, which you will be learning all about here just in a minute. All of the pictures that I have in this talk are actually taken in the conservatory or in the lab at my work. So these are all butterflies that I get to interact with up close. Guests can interact with up close as well. This is a beautiful heliconid species right here on the side. So just a little bit of personal background about me. I have a pretty rich life beyond butterflies. So some of the research that I do at the university is surveying Capitol Reef National Park for insect biodiversity, and we're also creating a field guide for the insects of Capitol Reef to be sold in the visitor center in collaboration with the park. At work in the entomology lab, I also do studies with color trait heritability in Pachnota marginata, which is they're also called sun beetles, but they're basically just a flower beetle. One of my biggest projects at work right now is our Tanzanian tailless whip scorpion light trials. So I've reared several different juvenile groups in different light conditions and kind of monitored their physiologic traits, their mortality, their average size, and behaviors throughout their life. So I'll actually be presenting that at a conference in the summer. Also, I'm a member of the Wildlife and Zoology Club. I'm actually the vice president. So we do various things such as service projects. We've cleaned up Utah Lake's shoreline. We've made dog cookies for fundraisers, and we host a weekly insect pinning event. We also have quite a few lepidopterans at the UVU insect collection. So we've got some tiger moths. That's not a very great specimen. A lot of these are donated by students. So we frequently get lots of lepidopterans to add to the collection. This is one of our wow drawers that has all of these really beautiful preserved specimens. And a lot of the ones that you're seeing in this wow box have been donated by my work. So the place that I work is called Thanksgiving Point. And just to give you a little bit of background information on Thanksgiving Point, our mission statement is that our mission is to bring the joy of learning and wonders of the natural world to life. So we really try to engage in transformative learning experiences based on natural life. And we really try to instill the values of stewardship and responsibility for the environment, for the other parts of the world that are not necessarily human. Our values are service, diversity and inclusion, stewardship, kindness, curiosity, excellence, and gratitude. And we try very hard to include these values in everything that we do. So Thanksgiving Point itself has 5 different venues. There's something called Farm Country, which is a working farm where children and other guests that aren't necessarily children can interact with farm animals. They can, see how a working farm works, where food comes from. We also have a science and technology museum called the Museum of Natural Curiosity. We have a dinosaur museum, which is called the Museum of Ancient Life. And if you've ever been to Utah, it's fairly iconic. It's right on one of the main highways, and it has, a giant Camarasaurus and an Allosaurus on one side that you can see. And it used to be that was really the only thing in the area. It's become a quite more metropolis since then. We also have a botanical garden called Ashton Gardens. And then the best one, in my opinion, is the butterfly biosphere. So the butterfly biosphere is actually Thanksgiving Point's newest venue. We opened back in 2018, and this was before I started working there. However, the pandemic really caused some setbacks. So they had reduced staffing, they had reduced inventory, they were working with reduced animals, with little to no butterflies. So there was a lot of logistical things that needed to be figured out when the pandemic started, and then when they reopened. And it took a couple of years to recover from that. And we're finally to the point where we're recovering from the issues that were caused by the pandemic. And now we're able to expand and improve exhibit spaces. We're able to hire people onto the entomology team. It used to be that we only had 3 people, and now we have 5, and we're hoping to, in the next year, hire 1 more person. So we're really excited at the direction that things are going so far. So I did kind of want to give you an overall view of how the venue is set up. So this is a view from one angle. We have probably about 35 different exhibits in our exhibit space. We have a critter corner where our education staff gives bug shows several times a day, really just kind of educational experiences and up-close encounters. They'll also do handling encounters like you can see here with this Madagascar hissing cockroach, and they'll do that anytime a guest asks. We have several different kinds of ambassador animals that we keep underneath the counter in kind of exhibits that can just be pulled out, and they can use those for handling. So that's quite a popular thing. So I've got a YouTube video. It's about 5 minutes long that kind of gives a general overview of the exhibit space as well as the butterfly spaces. So I'm going to pull that up really quick. Hopefully it works for me.
So Kelsey, you have to, you'll actually, I think, have to stop the PowerPoint and then share your YouTube, the internet page.
Gotcha. I just barely got it on here. All right. Can everyone see that beautiful ad?
Yes.
Okay, nice. Oops.
My name is Sarah.
Hi, I'm Chase.
Hi, I'm Andrea.
Hi, I'm Veronica.
Hi, I'm Tanya.
Hi, my name's Kelsey.
And I'm an entomologist.
The butterfly biosphere is home to over 160,000 individual bugs. Our conservatory showcases about 60 different species of butterfly, and our entomology lab and exhibit spaces are filled with about 50 different types of arachnids and 50 species of insects, including walking sticks, praying mantises, beetles, roaches, katydids, bumblebees, even a leafcutter ant colony, not to mention a handful of millipedes, centipedes, isopods, snails, and hermit crabs. When our guests visit, we hope that through play and curiosity, they can explore the many important roles that bugs fill in their ecosystems. And we hope that they can find beauty and wonder in the many shapes, colors, and behaviors of this incredibly diverse group of animals. To maintain such a large collection of live invertebrates for our guests to engage with, we have a team of 5 invertebrate keepers who work diligently and passionately to ensure all our animals have the highest levels of health, safety, and well-being that we can provide. Join us to experience a typical day in the life of an entomologist. I'm on our exhibits run today, which means that I'm responsible for checking and taking care of all of our non-butterfly exhibits before we open the venue at 10 o'clock. There are about 35 exhibits in our exhibit gallery. For each one, I'm checking the animal's health, making sure that they're present, alive, and noting any injuries or behaviors that I should be aware of. I'm giving them fresh food, checking that they have a full, clean water dish, or if they drink water droplets, I spray some water droplets off the side of their enclosure to drink. I also have to check the enclosure's overall humidity. For animals that are tropical and require high humidity, I make sure their substrate is uniformly moist and that they get sprayed with water every day. For animals that need less humidity, I ensure that only part of their substrate is moist, so they have a gradient in their enclosure and can choose to sit on either the drier side or the wetter side. I also look at the overall show quality, which might include things like wiping the sides of the enclosures, changing a dying plant, or making sure that the animal is relatively visible for guests. Our guests can actually watch me take care of these animals since I'm in an entirely separate room from them. We wait until after we open the venue to care for these exhibits to provide that opportunity for them to see the animal care. In the lab, we each take care of a specific group of invertebrates, like carnivores or herbivores, but on exhibits where we are showcasing the biodiversity of the invertebrate world for our guests, I have to stay aware of a wide variety of care types. So I use a to-do list to help me ensure that everyone is getting the right care they need on the right schedule.
In the conservatory, we're lucky to have an amazing horticulture team that cares for the plants and flowers the butterflies drink nectar from. The entomology team comes in each morning to refill the nectar feeders with Gatorade and twice a week to replace the fruits. It sounds gross, but the more rotten and juicy, the more the butterflies like them. We also collect all the butterflies that have died the previous day. They only have a 2 to 3 week lifespan, so it's normal to collect a pile like this daily. Any specimens that are in good condition we preserve and catalog so they're available for guests to purchase for insect pinning or art projects. In the lab, the most important part of the butterfly run is to collect all of the freshly emerged butterflies so they can be released into the conservatory for their first flight. When they first emerge from their chrysalis, their wings are wet and crumpled, so we have to give them time to expand and dry their wings, usually a couple of hours. I can tell that they're ready to fly once they've started fluttering to the bottom or the front wall of their emergence chamber. I won't bother the ones still hanging from their chrysalis, so I don't risk damaging their wings before they're fully hardened. We collect and release them twice a day, so they'll have their chance to fly this afternoon. After I've done that, I also have to remove any butterflies that died in their chrysalis or weren't able to fully expand their wings. They won't be able to fly in the conservatory to find food.
It's sad, but that's nature. Not all of our offspring are able to make it to adulthood. The normal success rate for healthy butterflies reaching adulthood is 85% or so. So while we collect butterflies from the chambers, we record how many emerged, how many failed to emerge, and how many had deformed wings. This is how we understand if we're meeting that success rate or if we need to make improvements in our care. All of our butterflies are hatched and raised on small farms in their native countries where there are plenty of tropical host plants for those hungry caterpillars to eat. Once they enter the chrysalis phase, they're shipped around the world to butterfly houses like us. We receive 2 to 3 shipments of butterfly pupae every week, about 1,200 in total. We glue them to strings so they can complete metamorphosis and emerge as butterflies, and that takes about 7 to 10 days for most of our species.
Today I'm caring for the carnivores in the lab.
Okay, so that gives a pretty good background of what we do and how we do it in the video that we just watched. Here we go from current slide. So I have a couple of videos also. They're not as professionally done, but it just kind of gives an idea of the layout of the conservatory. So the conservatory is basically a large glass enclosed greenhouse. It has just a multitude of tropical plants. It has anywhere from 1,500 to 2,500 butterflies flying in it at any given time. And we need to make sure that we have plants that are flowering and provide a variety of different nectar. We also have a lot of plants that just act as filler. So our horticulture team works to keep those alive. We have a pond and a waterfall as seen here. We also have large shades on the ceiling that we can retract or pull up to give varying levels of sunlight and allow warmth in, which is especially important on the cold winter days when when there's snow everywhere. Utah gets very cold and most of the butterflies need about an 80 degree environment to be able to fly and thrive. This kind of gives a better idea of the upstairs area that we have. And we have a large central island here. And as you can see, these are some of our butterflies just enjoying the flowers that we have out there. Again, a number of different heliconid species eating our bleeding heart vine. So this is the entomology lab, which is where the magic happens. This is where we rear all of our different invertebrates. So I know that this is a butterfly club, so I promise I will get to the butterflies. I wanted to go over the invertebrate diversity that we do have, just because it's some of my favorite. So we have orthopterans, which is grasshoppers and katydids, a wide variety. And also in all life stages. So most of the insects and invertebrates that we have, we rear ourselves, or at least we try to if it's not too difficult. We have 8 different species of cockroaches. I've pictured here a couple of the ones I think are cute, the dominoes and the Halloween hissing cockroaches eating some peas. We've got a variety of large beetles. We've got rainbow stag beetles, elephant beetles, Hercules beetles. We have probably about 7 different species of large beetle. We also have grubs for all of our beetles that we need to house and take care of. We have spiders, true spiders. We also have tarantulas. We have about 50 different species of tarantulas. And then we have some non-insect invertebrates. We've got some crustaceans. We have hermit crabs and 10 different species of isopods. And we also have a couple different species of land snails. We have aquatic insects. We have a variety of different mantids that we breed on a regular basis and been quite successful with. We also have a variety of millipedes, which are probably my favorite organism. I think they're just adorable. We have some centipedes as well, some non-aquatic hemipterans, scorpions and allies. We have several beehives and 2 leafcutter ant colonies. We also have phasmids, which are leaf insects and stick bugs, as well as some vertebrates, a couple of frogs, and some button quail, which provide pest control in the conservatory. So you get the idea. We have a lot of invertebrate diversity. So on to the butterflies. So where do the butterflies come from? And that's one of the questions that we get asked most regularly. And we receive pupa from small farms in their countries of origin. And this does a couple of things. First, it conserves rainforest land. So we're preserving acres and acres of land that would otherwise just be deforested, used for lumber, or other reasons or other uses. It also provides funding for those businesses. They're usually family owned. They're usually in countries that are not as developed. So we like to support those businesses when we can. Another reason is that caterpillars eat a ton, just a ton of biomass. So we really don't have the space or the manpower or the money to consistently raise the amount of butterflies that we would need to fill our conservatory. I also get asked a lot if we raise our own butterflies, and the answer is yes, sometimes. Sometimes people bring in caterpillars, as you can see over here on the left, this big chunky sphinx moth larva. Sometimes we intentionally breed our own butterflies. And this is more often when we have an intern or somebody who is willing to work volunteer hours, since most of our day is as the entomologists are taken up by the work in the husbandry that we have to do. But we've frequently had a very enthusiastic butterfly interns who have volunteered to put host plants out into the conservatory. And the way we control them from breeding in the conservatory is that we don't put any host plants for any of the species that we have in there. So none of the caterpillars can eat and live on the plants that we have currently in there. So really all it takes to get some caterpillars is putting a host plant in the conservatory, leaving it for a couple of days, and then come back out and there's little eggs all over it. So we do get our shipments in 2 to 3 times a week. And processing the pupae is a big, long deal. So we get just piles and piles and piles of pupae. We get thousands of pupae, and you can see what a diverse assortment they are. They come in all sorts of colors. Sometimes they're metallic, they're green, they look like wood. It's really amazing to see. So we sort them by species. We count them to make sure we received the correct amount. And then they are labeled with what species they are and a date. And while we're doing all of that, we put them on moist cloths and trays just while we prepare them, so that they're able to stay hydrated while they're waiting to continue processing. So once we have them all sorted, we hot glue them onto strings. Usually when we get them, they have pupated and their chrysalis is attached to some kind of foam substance, or sometimes it's like a little bit of burlap, something that we're able to use to glue onto. So we're not actually gluing the live pupa. It's not hurting the insects. We're just using whatever substrate it is that they pupated on, or the small kind of thing at the end called the cremaster. We're just using that to put in the glue. So no butterflies are harmed. And you can see here the 2 pupa that are right next to each other. One of them is brand new and the other one is just about ready to emerge. So you can see the wings forming in there. And this is kind of how we can tell, like, okay, this one is older. This one is probably ready to come out any day now. Once we have the pupa on strings, we place the strings into the eclosion chambers, and we have controlled heat and humidity, and we wait for them to come out. So the butterfly chambers we use because we can control multiple variables in the chambers. Some species might have different needs. So we do have a high humidity chamber. We have a lot of very temperamental species, or species that are used to higher humidity based on their country of origin. So we have 2 that have lower humidity and 1 that has higher, and we separate them based on their humidity needs and also by their shipments and from their countries of origin.
Yeah, they're all specimens.
All right. So this is the chamber setup we have. These are the 2 in the back. We also have 1 in the front for guest viewing, so they can see kind of what's going on in there. The chamber on the right-hand side over there, that is our chamber 3, the high humidity chamber. We just have normal humidifiers that you might use to humidify a room, and we have them hooked up to tubes that go and humidify the inside of the chambers. We also have signs that say check for parasitic wasps before opening on every chamber, because that is something we deal with frequently. The chamber, I'm just realizing now, was this supposed to end at 7? Or do you guys...
you're good.
Okay, I just noticed the time. Thanks. So the chamber conditions in chamber 1 and 2, we keep it 70 to 80% humidity. In chamber 3, which is where the sensitive species go, we keep that at 90% humidity. So it's a little bit more of a nurturing environment for some butterflies, and humidity is really important because without the right amount of moisture, they're not able to expand their wings. So we get a lot of wing deformities or a lot of pupae that don't make it to adulthood if we have them in lower humidity environments. We also have sunlight lamps that are just on a timer, and they're for 12 hours from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And the lab as a whole is kept at 75 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit and 70 to 75% humidity. So the lab is already pretty hot and pretty humid, which is, not always super fun to work in, but it's really good for the insects that we have and the butterflies. So we do have a lot of barriers to successful eclosion. There's genetic disorders that are not under our control that can cause all sorts of different issues. the temperature that the pupae are subjected to during transit and delivery. So again, we live in a very cold climate where I am. And if they have a delay in shipping, they might sit overnight in 20-degree Fahrenheit weather. So that could affect the success of their eclosion, and they might end up dying, or a higher percentage might end up dying than if they were kept warm the entire time. If their humidity needs are not met, they will also not be able to be successful. Another thing that we don't really have control over is nutritional deficits during larval stages. So we'll often see very stunted butterflies that are much, much smaller than we normally see, because the caterpillars didn't get enough nutrition during their life stages, and because the size of the caterpillar controls the size of the butterfly. If it is just a small caterpillar and decides it's time to pupate, it will just come out as a tiny butterfly, which honestly is sometimes very cute. As you saw in the previous pictures, the the check for parasitic wasps, we struggle sometimes with parasitoid wasps and parasitoid flies. And this is not something that we're able to check for, because the parasites will lay their eggs on the larva before pupation, and then they will eat the body of the metamorphosing butterfly as it's coming to adulthood. So we don't know if pupa have been parasitized. So sometimes it's just a fun surprise. We'll come in the morning and check out our butterfly chambers, and there'll be 100 little tiny wasps in there that we need to suck up with an aspirator. And we want to make sure that these never escape into the lab, because they do have the potential to parasitize other insects, and we want to make sure that it's that they are contained as soon as possible. So the success rate for our butterflies, our goal is about 85%. And that's a pretty good goal. And most of the time we're able to achieve that. We do have several species, mostly the ones that require higher humidity, that we have to tweak and keep tweaking until we're able to reach those. So sometimes our success rate is much lower. And it does depend on these factors. There's also barriers to survivor as adults. We do have some tiny predators in the conservatory, things that come in on plants, things like frogs, jumping spiders that in some cases are big enough to take down an entire butterfly. We also, every once in a while, have a naughty quail who thinks it's fun to eat a butterfly, which we really try to, negatively make a negative connection with them about eating the butterflies, because although we got them for pest control, we want them to eat the cockroaches and not the butterflies. Also, injury by guest is quite common, because guests are very excited to interact with these butterflies, to be able to hold them and, sit and have them fly around you. But unfortunately, because there's so many small children, some of them are not fully in control of what they're doing yet, or they're just maybe don't understand how fragile butterflies are. Unfortunately, butterflies do sometimes get injured or are killed by guests. So these are some photos of parasitic wasps and some parasitic flies that we have found in different chambers. So this one on the left, that big black wasp, who's actually quite gorgeous, came out of that little tiny pupa. So there was only one of those, but it's always surprising to me how many can come out of just the smallest pupa. Here are some potential genetic disorders that might occur. So you can see there's some holes in the wings. On the left side, there's 3 little holes in this one. There's one on the right. And butterflies like this sometimes just come out not being able to fly. They have holes in their wings. They might have bubbles on their wings. They might be perfect, except for they have an engorged abdomen. And we don't really know what causes these conditions, but it most likely is something during its life or some kind of disease that it's gotten that we really can't control for, and we probably won't be able to fix because it happened before reaching our care center. Ooh, excuse me for the blurry picture here, but some of them just never end up emerging, or they emerge part way and they just never get out. And that is just kind of part of the process. Going through metamorphosis is incredible, and it's incredibly difficult. So sometimes something goes wrong in the process and they just don't make it. Here, this is a really cute picture. So this is one of those large jumping spiders that has grown large enough that it's taken down a butterfly. So although not common, it is something that does happen. So now I'd like to go over collecting and releasing, how we record, transfer, and release butterflies. In the video at the beginning, they went over it just a little bit. We use sheets, just dry erase sheets, to count how many of each different species. We'll usually have anywhere from like 200 to 400 butterflies that we release every single day. So we need to keep track of them. And most of the time we'll get, 60 from one species and 50 from another, and then a couple here and there. So we record the number of the species, the date, and the shipment they came from. And this is a nice little video just showing how we do the butterfly release. I like to just sit them and let the ones who want to come out, and then gently take out the ones one by one as they become ready. And this is a really fun thing for guests to watch as well. I think it's very exciting for them to see all the butterflies fly out. So a question that I get asked frequently is what happens when they die? So we have a pretty rigorous collecting schedule. So we will have either one of us, one of the entomologists, or if we have a volunteer that likes to help that day, they'll collect all of these butterflies. And we usually find usually a couple hundred every day. And just because since the lifespan's only a couple of weeks and we keep so many, several thousand butterflies flying, we probably expect anywhere from like 100 to 200 dead butterflies on any given day. Not all of them are in good condition though. So we separate out the ones that are in good condition, fair condition, and then the rest we toss or we donate to people who like to do artwork with their shredded wings. Everything that goes through our lab needs to be frozen for 3 days per USDA requirements. So we freeze them for 3 days. We mark them in the envelope on the date that they can be taken out. And then we file them away in a cabinet, at which point guests can buy them. They can put in orders for the different species they want. And if they're sexually dimorphic, whether they want a male or a female. Another thing that happens with our butterfly specimens is sometimes they get pinned into these really beautiful displays. So these are hanging all throughout our halls. These have been professionally done by some of our upper management, as well as some of our friends who have just exquisite pinning skills and design sense. So some of the dead butterflies go to very fancy art projects, which I think is a great use. We try not to waste anything that still has value. So the butterflies do live happily in the conservatory for a few days to a few weeks, depending on the species and whether it's a moth or a butterfly. And while they're there, they don't have any natural predators. So I like to think they have a very happy life. And just to give you an idea of the diversity of butterfly species, I've put here a couple of pictures. We've got swallowtails. This one here, that's a Constantine swallowtail. This one's here is a clear wing. We've got bird wings. This is an African moon moth. That's an atlas moth right there on my shirt. That's actually the Constantine swallowtail, excuse me. That's an emerald swallowtail. And that's really all I've got. So if you have any questions, I would be happy to field any.
Thank you so much, Kelsey. So if anyone wants to ask a question, announce the time, or if you want to put one in the chat and I will read it in the chat.
There.
I just unmuted us.
How many different species do you have at any one time, do you think, in flying?
Flying, that's a really good question. So we have some very large blue butterflies, blue morpho butterflies that we keep flying all the time, as well as caligo memnon, which are owl butterflies that we keep flying all the time as well. So we always get those in our shipments. But the rest, we have anywhere from 80 to 100 different species of butterflies that will get in on a regular basis. So I would probably say just flying in the conservatory, we usually have somewhere from like 50 to 80 different species, just depending on what's been sent to us that week.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have any North American species mixed in, or do you keep those strictly separate from the tropicals?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we do have some North American butterflies. Most of the time, they are still kind of subtropical butterflies that are from Florida. However, we do get in painted ladies just because they're from everywhere, and they're also really good because you can actually release painted lady butterflies out into the world without really any kind of risk. So sometimes we have events like in the summer, we do a pollinator event and we get in lots of painted lady butterflies so that we can release them as part of the pollinator event.
Do you have some sort of airlock system to prevent butterflies from getting into the natural world, which might be problematic if there's disease?
Absolutely. So the USDA regulates us very closely. So we have, there's no doors into the conservatory itself. Each door it is kind of like an airlock system. So you go through one door, there's mirrors, you check yourself, make sure there's no butterflies on it and then on you, and then you exit the conservatory. So we have somebody who stands at the exits, checks everyone going out and make sure we don't have any hideaways. And then they check themselves and then they leave. In case of an emergency exit, we have an emergency exit that leads directly out of the conservatory, in which case we do have fans that push the air back. So the butterflies aren't strong enough to fly against it, but people can still walk through.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there
How
any
many different countries do you? Oh,
No,
sorry.
no, you're good. You're good.
How
Rini. Go
many
ahead.
different countries? Okay, how many different countries do you get the butterflies from?
So we get them from South American countries, probably about a lot of South American countries. I'm not exactly sure the precise number, but South America, Florida areas, the southern United States, Southeast Asia, and we get a lot of African countries as well. I think Costa Rica is probably one of our biggest. Of course, Costa Rica is famous for all their beautiful butterflies.
Are there any other questions? I don't see any in the chat. Okay, I'm not seeing any. So thank you so much, Kelsey. I love that. We used to, when I was younger, there used to be, I'm not sure if it was a butterfly conservatory, but it used to be up north in Teaneck, World of Wings, if anybody knows that. So I always like seeing this, and I went to one recently when I was in Florida. So it was very cool.
Oh yeah, Florida has a lot. That's where our chief entomologist's from. Well, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Oh, Marge, are you?
I just wanted to say thank you for a most interesting program.
Yes.
That you guys put into it is incredible.
Thank you.
So people can enjoy butterflies, and then maybe they'll enjoy our native species in their gardens.
Yes, that's the idea. We really want them to have the take-home message that insects and invertebrates are small, but they are powerful and they need our protection.
Well, thank you again.
So thank you so much. I'm actually going to stop the recording.